Have you ever noticed a moment when everything suddenly becomes quiet? Not peaceful quiet, a strange quiet. A pause where nothing moves forward and nothing falls apart. Most people panic in that moment. They rush to fill the silence. They send another message. They check again. They search for signs. They try to push life back into motion. But what if that pause is not a delay? What if that pause is the moment when reality is quietly rearranging itself for you? There is a space in life that almost no one trusts. It is the moment after effort and before the result. The moment after you set an intention, but before you see evidence. It is the moment where the mind wants to grab control again. But the truth is something very different. In that silent space, something begins to organize beneath the surface. Most people do not realize how often they interrupt their own outcomes. They plant the seed of intention and then dig it up again with worry. They visualize success and then immediately question if it will happen. They ask the universe for change and then spend the next hours doubting it. This constant interference creates noise, and noise is the enemy of alignment. Think about the last time you wanted something deeply. Maybe it was an opportunity. Maybe it was healing. Maybe it was growth. Notice what happened after the desire appeared. Did you feel calm and certain? Or did your mind begin spinning with questions? When will it happen? How will it happen? What if it does not happen? These questions seem harmless. They feel logical. But every question fueled by tension pulls you away from the silent space where real change begins forming. Quantum silence is not empty. It is not passive. It is not doing nothing. It is the moment when the mind stops interfering long enough for deeper alignment to appear. This silence is difficult for most people because it removes the illusion of control. When you are constantly thinking, planning, adjusting, and predicting, you feel productive. You feel involved in shaping the future. But much of that activity is actually fear disguised as effort. The mind wants certainty. The mind wants evidence. The mind wants immediate movement. But the universe does not operate on impatience. It operates on coherence. Coherence means your thoughts, your emotions, and your body are not fighting each other. They are moving in the same direction without tension. When you trust quantum silence, you stop shouting your desires at reality. You stop forcing belief. You stop chasing confirmation every few minutes. Instead, you hold the intention quietly and allow the system to reorganize. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Silence reveals everything you usually avoid. If you feel doubt, you will notice it. If you feel impatience, you will notice it. If you feel fear, you will notice it. But noticing is not failure. Noticing is awareness, and awareness is the first step toward alignment. When you sit in silence without rushing to escape it, something unexpected happens. Your nervous system begins to calm down. Your breathing slows slightly. Your body releases small layers of tension that were invisible before. This shift may seem small, but it changes everything, because a calm nervous system perceives reality differently than a stressed one. When you are tense, your mind scans for problems. When you are calm, your mind notices opportunities. This difference changes the direction of your life more than most people realize. The person who trusts silence sees possibilities. The person who fears silence sees obstacles. Your perception shapes your choices. Your choices shape your outcomes. This is why silence is powerful. It is not that silence magically creates results.
It is that silence allows your system to align with the results that were already forming. Many people try to manifest change by increasing emotional intensity. They repeat affirmations louder. They visualize harder. They try to stay positive every second of the day. But intensity is not the same as alignment. When positivity is forced, the body feels pressure. When the body feels pressure, the nervous system enters stress mode. When the nervous system enters stress mode, the brain focuses on survival, not expansion. In survival mode, your mind searches for what might go wrong. This is why forcing belief often creates the opposite result. The mind says everything is working out, but the body feels tension. That contradiction creates noise, and noise blocks the quiet alignment where change begins. Quantum silence works differently. Instead of forcing belief, you create space. Instead of pushing reality, you allow it to reorganize. Instead of repeating words, you regulate your inner state. This shift feels subtle, but it is powerful. Because when your system relaxes, your perception expands. When your perception expands, you notice paths that were invisible before.
Opportunities do not always appear as miracles. Sometimes they appear as small ideas, simple conversations, a sudden clarity about the next step. These signals are quiet. If your mind is loud, you will miss them. This is why silence matters. There is also something deeper happening in these moments. When you stop forcing outcomes, your identity begins to shift. You move from chasing results to trusting process. This shift changes your relationship with life. Instead of fighting every delay, you begin observing it. Instead of assuming something is wrong, you begin asking a different question. What if something is forming that I cannot see yet? This question alone changes the energy of waiting. Waiting no longer feels like failure. Waiting becomes preparation. Most breakthroughs are born in these invisible moments. The idea appears after the pressure fades. The solution arrives after the struggle stops. The opportunity connects when you stop chasing it. This pattern is not coincidence, it is alignment. When you trust quantum silence, you stop disturbing the process long enough for it to complete itself. But the mind resists this deeply. The mind wants movement, it wants reassurance, it wants constant updates. So it invents activity, checking messages again, replaying conversations, planning every possible scenario. This activity creates the illusion of progress, but often it only feeds anxiety. And anxiety tightens your perception. Tight perception leads to rushed decisions. Rushed decisions lead to repeated outcomes. This is how many people unknowingly recreate the same patterns year after year. They never allow silence long enough for the pattern to break. Quantum silence interrupts that loop. When you stop interfering, your system recalibrates. Old reactions lose strength. New possibilities appear. This does not happen instantly. It happens gradually, quietly, almost invisibly. But once you experience it, you begin recognizing the pattern everywhere. You notice that clarity often arrives after rest. You notice that solutions appear when you stop chasing them. You notice that the right direction becomes obvious when the mind becomes quiet. And slowly, something inside you changes. You begin trusting the pause. You begin trusting the silence. And once you learn to trust that silence, something surprising begins to happen. Life stops feeling like a constant battle. Instead, it starts feeling like a process you are learning to move with rather than fight against.
There is a moment in every transformation that feels like nothing is happening. It is the space between effort and evidence, the space where the mind begins to doubt everything. Most people abandon their intentions in this moment, not because the intention was wrong, but because the silence feels uncomfortable. They interpret the quiet as failure. But the quiet is often where the real work is happening. Think about how growth works in nature. Seeds do not break the soil immediately. Roots form first in darkness, invisible, quiet, slow. If you judged the seed too early, you would assume nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, everything is organizing. Your personal growth follows the same pattern. When you trust quantum silence, you allow your internal system to develop roots before demanding visible results. These roots are habits, beliefs, emotional regulation, and clarity. Without them, any success would collapse under pressure. This is why the waiting period exists. It is not punishment, it is preparation. Yet most people sabotage this stage with impatience. They constantly measure progress. They compare themselves to others. They search for proof that something is working. This searching creates tension, and tension disrupts the process of alignment. When you trust quantum silence, you remove that pressure. You stop measuring every step. You stop forcing progress to appear on your schedule. Instead, you focus on maintaining a stable inner state. This stability becomes the foundation for everything else. Manifestation is often misunderstood because people believe it is about attracting external events, but the real shift happens internally first.
Your perception changes. Your reactions change. Your decisions change. Once those changes stabilize, your external reality begins reflecting them. But this reflection is delayed, and that delay tests your trust. During that delay, the mind will try to convince you that nothing is happening. This is the moment where most people return to old patterns. They start forcing again, pushing again, doubting again, and the cycle repeats. But if you remain calm in the silence, something else occurs. Your attention becomes sharper. You begin noticing patterns that were invisible before. You realize certain habits were draining your energy. You notice certain environments were limiting your growth. You recognize opportunities that once seemed ordinary. This awareness changes your direction. Small adjustments follow. Different conversations, different choices, different priorities. Over time, these small shifts create massive transformation. But because they happened gradually, many people believe the change was sudden. It was never sudden. It was silently forming. This is the power of trusting the process instead of rushing it. Silence also teaches patience with yourself. Growth does not always look impressive from the outside. Sometimes growth looks like resting when you used to panic. Sometimes growth looks like pausing before reacting. Sometimes growth looks like choosing peace instead of proving a point. These changes are invisible victories, but they reshape your life more than dramatic actions ever could. When your internal state stabilizes, your external world eventually reflects that stability. This is why personal development and manifestation are connected. Both require alignment between intention and identity. And identity cannot change while the mind is constantly reacting. Identity changes in quiet reflection, in still moments, in honest awareness. Quantum silence creates that environment. It gives your mind space to reorganize. Old beliefs begin loosening. New perspectives begin forming. Over time, you become someone who naturally attracts the opportunities you once chased. Not because you forced reality to respond, but because your internal state now matches the outcomes you desire. This is the real transformation, and it begins with trusting the silence when nothing appears to be moving.
Something remarkable begins to happen once you truly trust silence. Your relationship with uncertainty changes. Instead of fearing the unknown, you start seeing it as possibility. The unknown is no longer empty space, it becomes open space, space where new directions can form. This shift removes enormous pressure from your life. You stop demanding instant answers. You stop forcing clarity before it is ready. You allow situations to unfold naturally. This patience gives you an advantage most people never experience. Because while others rush decisions driven by fear, you remain steady enough to see the bigger picture. Clarity appears faster for the calm mind than for the desperate one. When you trust quantum silence, you also begin trusting yourself more deeply. You realize you do not need to control every outcome. You only need to stay aligned with your intention and take the next honest step when it becomes clear. This creates confidence that does not depend on constant success. Your confidence comes from stability, from knowing you can remain calm even when the path is uncertain. This calmness becomes magnetic. People notice it, opportunities respond to it, conversations shift around it. Because calm presence signals clarity and reliability, and those qualities naturally attract trust and collaboration. Many people search for complicated strategies to change their lives, but the foundation is often much simpler. Learn to regulate your inner state. Learn to pause before reacting. Learn to allow silence without rushing to escape it. These simple practices transform your perception, and perception transforms decisions. Decisions transform outcomes. This chain reaction quietly reshapes your entire future. Over time, you will notice something surprising. Life begins flowing with less resistance, not because problems disappear, but because you stop amplifying them with anxiety. Challenges become information instead of threats. Delays become preparation instead of failure. And silence becomes a partner instead of an enemy. This is the hidden gift of trusting quantum silence. It reconnects you with a deeper rhythm of growth. A rhythm that existed long before constant noise filled every moment of modern life. When you return to that rhythm, you discover something powerful. You do not need to force every outcome. You only need to remain aware enough to recognize the right moment for action. And when that moment arrives, action feels simple, clear, natural. No struggle, no internal battle, just movement in the direction that already feels aligned. That is the real result of trusting the silence. You stop fighting life, and once that fight ends, a new kind of momentum begins. Quiet, steady, powerful. The kind of momentum that builds not from pressure, but from alignment. And when alignment replaces noise, something extraordinary happens. The life you once tried to force begins forming on its own.